Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. Public media funding is on the line. That means trusted interviews and important conversations like the ones you hear on Idaho Matters could be in jeopardy. Act now at boisestatepublicradio.org/funding. Help protect the journalism you count on. More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. There are countless trails to explore throughout Idaho. However, if you have kids, it can be hard to know which ones will work for your family. That's why outdoor enthusiast Holly Hork has put together a guidebook listing 50 of the state's most kid-friendly trails. It's called Hiking with Kids Idaho, and Holly is joining us live now to talk more about this. Holly, nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So what made you want to put a guide like this together?
So I have actually always enjoyed hiking with my own kids. I have four kiddos, and when we moved to Idaho, there are some beginning hiking books that are an amazing resource. But I actually met somebody who had written Hiking with Kids New England. I met her on a yurt trip with a group of women, and she mentioned that she had written this book and it was coming out. And I was like, I have always wanted to write a Hiking with Kids Idaho. There are no Hiking with Kids specifically in Idaho books. And so she made the introduction to her publisher, Falcon Guides, and we did an email introduction. I pitched them my plan, and we just kind of went from there. And I actually, even a couple years before that, had talked to a cousin of mine who's an author about the process
Mm-hmm.
to write a book. And once she said that once I finished all the research, then I would need to find a publisher, I was like, oh, I'm out. So it was actually really amazing because doing all of that work and then still having to work to
Yeah.
find a way to get published, I was like, I don't know if I can commit to doing that. But once I signed the contract with Falcon Guides, I was like, I can do this. And I'm so excited that it's here. I have it in my hands. It's going to be amazing for so many families here that are just looking to get out with their kiddos.
Okay, so let's talk about the research part of this. How was it doing the research and how long did it take?
So it was incredible and exhausting. Um, I signed the contract in May of 2023, so over 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's correct. And then all of that summer, 2023, was spent researching, and all last summer, 2024, was spent researching. And I turned the book into my publisher last August. And
Oh my
then the
goodness. Okay.
publishing process. Yeah, the publishing process takes quite a while, about, 8 to 9 months for everything to
Mm-hmm.
get edited and put out there. So, but it was really an incredible experience. There were a few times when we got to go as a whole family on trips. We have, like I said, my husband and I have four kids. And there were a handful of times we got to go all together, but there were also trips where I just took the kids, all four of them. And those were actually some of my favorite trips because I just had to do everything,
Mm-hmm.
from researching where I was going, knowing if I would have cell reception or not, and then being on the trail with the kids. Kids, they range in age now from my youngest is 5 and my oldest is 12. So there were times when I was like, you guys, we have to finish this hike because I'm doing research. And that was kind of a struggle, I suppose, just to
Mm-hmm.
have, usually with kids, you can turn around if you need to.
Right.
And so that was a struggle, but they were really amazing and supportive, and they supported me through it. And we worked together to make it happen. But yeah, the research was incredible. Research trips were some of my favorite memories from the past 2 summers. And
So
yeah, I oh, go ahead.
So I was going to say, so how did you narrow down which trails you wanted to end up including in the guide? Because we have so many trails here in Idaho.
We do have so many trails. So my goal was to find trails that were kid friendly mostly. And then if they weren't super kid friendly, like to have some sort of like goal or some
Mm,
like a there's one. Station Creek is up in Garden Valley, and it's a strenuous hike. So I included, because kids can do hard things. So I do have, I think, four strenuous hikes included in the book, but all of them, once you reach the top or the summit, you get this incredible view. And I think it's really important that the book grows with families. So even if you
hmm.
get it and your kids are young, you can do all of those 20 something easy trails and then move on to the more moderate ones and eventually work up to the strenuous ones, because I think that kids can do hard things. And I think that that's something that, you know, I don't want people to just think this is a book with only easy trails, because my kids have done all of these hikes, and it's totally possible to get your kids hiking harder trails. But yes, when I was narrowing it down, it was really important for me to have like a nice landmark or feature, or just for example, Jump Creek Falls is here
Yeah.
an hour outside of Boise. And at the end, it's a super easy, short hike, super fun for kids, very engaging. And then there's a big waterfall at the end of it. So things like that, where it's like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does because my kids need a payoff if I'm going to take them
Yes.
hiking, right? I mean, there has to be a
Yes.
payoff because, and my kids are 13 and 17 and they still want to pay off, right? So if
Yeah,
I'm going to take them on
absolutely.
a
Even
hike,
as adults. Yeah.
right? Like, don't take, I mean, my kids are like, don't take me on a hike with nothing at the end. And,
Hmm.
and I must say, the one thing that I appreciate when I am out hiking nowadays is when I do see other families who struggle with their kids because you realize we're
Hmm.
all in this together. And
Yep.
I mean I'm kind of laughing, but I mean we've all been there with our kids. So this is what I want to ask you next. How so with four kids ranging in ages from 5 to 12, do you have any tips for parents out there to maybe motivate your kiddos on the hikes? Because you want to get them out there, you want to do this, and it is a guarantee that they are going to complain at some point.
Oh, for sure. I actually, in the introduction of my book, I included tips for hiking with kids, and I said just that yeah, it's very hard. But yeah, so some of my tips, I'll just open up my book now and just read from
Yeah.
that, because that'll be the easiest way to get it across, since I say a lot. So one of my tips is to pack up as much as you can the night before, just to like prep yourself and have everything ready. And then tips as far as like getting kids motivated is to start small with short little hikes and walks around the neighborhood, just to get them used to moving outdoors.
Mm,
Choosing the right hikes. So that's why it's really nice to have this guidebook specifically, because you can look through this book and see which hikes are going to be a good fit for your family. Not every hike will fit every family, and that's okay. And I think choosing the right hikes is something that is critical. Like you said, your kids need a payoff, and
mhm.
you know that, so you will pretty much only choose hikes that have a great payoff for them, right?
Oh,
And then another
absolutely.
tip,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then another tip is to just pack lots of snacks and water. Um, I I am not above bribery with children, especially depending on the ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. One of the hard hikes
I
that
think
we did. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things too is that for parents maybe who've never been hiking with their kids before, right? It can seem really daunting. You mentioned Jump Creek Falls. I have to say, I think that's like the perfect hike for parents with kiddos because it is so short. I mean, it's really kind of a walk, but the
Yep,
payoff is amazing for your kids.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and starting with something like that will instill that love of hiking or that love of adventure, like finding a new place. That's that's what it comes down to too, is like another one of my tips is to like point out things in nature that you see along the trail. It's okay to stop and look at a butterfly for a few minutes if that gets your kids
Hmm.
engaged with nature and connecting and feeling like they're part of it, as opposed to, oh, here we are hiking on a trail and we're just going to go. It's important to take those times to like point out things that you find interesting or ask them what they find interesting and really connect with your surroundings. I think that that's a huge thing, especially with kids.
I think you put a lot of consideration into this book. And the one thing that I also want to talk about before I let you go is you didn't make this just trail specific, right? Like, okay, there's this trail, there's this trail, there's this trail. You put things in like whether it's dog friendly, does it have restrooms, right? Maybe even stroller or wheelchair accessibility. Why was it important to make sure that you added, those types of things into this book as well?
So those are things that are very important when you're choosing a trail. You want to know those things ahead of time. You want to know if you're going to see mountain bikers on the trail. You want to know if there's any water available or bathrooms available. That's a huge thing with kids, knowing if there's a bathroom
Hmm.
at the trailhead or not. And also I included a handful that are stroller and wheelchair accessible because I think that's so important. I think it's important for everybody to get outside and enjoy nature. And so I wanted to make sure that it was very inclusive for every family.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with us about this. We've been speaking with author and outdoor enthusiast Holly Hork about her brand new guidebook, Hiking with Kids, Idaho. You can get it right now. You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
Love this podcast? It's powered by public media, and that's under threat. Help keep it going. Take 1 minute at boisestatepublicradio.org/funding. Your voice matters.